Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Self-Liberation Project podcast. I am Nathan Hawken, and I have with me former Olympian athlete turned humanitarian philanthropist, Christy Mokatupu. How you doing, Christy?
Thanks, Nathan. Good. How are you doing, Super Dad?
I'm good. I thought we'll mix up the intros a little bit as well and see if we can top it every week. But I'm doing well. I was a bit sick last week, though, actually, so it's typical. Like, I think Amy was working. She had about 4 or 5 people get sick in her work, and then she brought it home, so I had to look after the kids for 2 days that week. And then the following week, I picked up what she had, so I was out of action for a couple of days as well, and it's still kind of lingering a little bit. It's been, hasn't been like a cold, but it's been quite similar to it, but not the same. Do you know when you got a cold, you're like, all right, this is a cold. I know what it is. I know how to handle it. This was different. Like, I felt achy. I felt unwell. Had to be in bed for a couple of days, and it's still just kind of lingering right at the back of my throat there. So it's been fun. It's taking me out of action, which I hate. I really hate.
But quite common these days. I mean, when I've been bringing people or contact people for this big birthday or black tie event I'm doing, a lot of people are sick, dealing with someone that's sick, and then they're trying to manage their work and their families. And that's quite taxing and tiring for a lot of people right now. That's very current. Not all this other big stuff. It's just family, work, and health right now that a lot of people are trying to overcome. So I completely relate to that and understand that.
Yeah, I wrestle with it because there's always a part of me that's like, no, I'm just going to suck it up and keep going. Then the other side is like, well, maybe you need to rest. And I kind of learned over the years that it's my unconscious mind, like maybe bringing my immune system down to force me to rest when I haven't been looking after myself, haven't been getting enough proper sleep, or haven't been eating right. And so I kind of wrestle with that because at the same time I'm like, I wanted to record some more content, or I need to work, or I need to do this. But when I rest, I feel good, but I don't give myself that mental break because I beat myself up because I'm resting because I'm sick. And I think that's what a lot of people really struggle with. It's like they've got so much pressure to do everything, or they really want to be successful, they want to create something, and every time something comes, like a roadblock, especially when it's your physical health and it's stopping you from doing, like physically stopping you from doing something, I think there's a big mental battle there. So you kind of have to just let that go and be kind to yourself. Like, it's just a break for a couple of days, and what you have to do, you'll be able to do better once you've recovered. But I still wrestle with it myself. It's a pain.
Me too, guilty. Massive weakness. And it was only when I started going through healing and understood trauma and why I do what I do and why I couldn't rest. And I was obsessed with working, workaholic and achieving. And then when I found the root cause for that, I could finally, as a Christian, finally learn to rest and exactly take that mental break, because even when you're resting, you're not really resting. So I really relate to that. And even now that I know what I know, I still struggle with it. I still have to stop myself and say, wait, get into that space and completely rest and let go. And so I'm always, I still struggle with it, but I notice that I'm more self-aware, where I'll stop myself and say, no, you need to rest. And this is forced rest or whatever it is.
Yeah. I feel bad for some people who can't rest. Maybe it's like a single parent with a few kids who's got to be working, and maybe they don't have the resources or the help to be able to step in when they need it. I know we consider ourselves, or I consider myself, very lucky at times, particularly like with Amy's accident recently. If I had to do that all by myself with no family nearby and no help, it really would have struggled. But there are people out there that really struggle with that, because it's all well and good for us to be like, oh yeah, like take a rest, don't work, do what you need to do and just look after yourself. Some people can't do it though, right? Some people just have to push on, which makes it really tricky. So yeah, it's I do feel bad like that. And once again, it's just like a reminder to myself, like, be grateful that you've got what you've got, and you are able to rest when you need to, right? Don't beat yourself up. Just be very thankful, because a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah, that's good to be in the grateful mindset all the time. Thanks for mentioning that too, because you're right. I mean, I think of a couple of mums here from they moved to Australia. And they got married here, saying they don't have any family here. I play beach volleyball with a couple of them. They're internationals and from Spain and Italy. And I listen to their stories. One's got twins. And she doesn't have help at all. And she's trying to work and look after her kids. Yeah, you're right. We do have to be grateful, because some people, they can't have rest. They don't really have that much support around them. Maybe that's why friends as well are so important, because you don't always have family, and so building a good friendship base where you have good friends that are there to help you is important as well.
Yeah, like we got that right. And it's quite interesting when we take it on like a bigger scale, because people in general have a really good life. Like in general, the fact that we have so many modern conveniences and things like that, we kind of take all that for granted, especially when we're forced to stop. So that level of gratitude, it's not just like the woo-woo side of things, like be grateful and you'll have more of the things you want in your life and things like that. It's very important, but there is a really like a deeper thing going on, because you don't have to be grateful for like the big things. You be grateful for the little things, like having running water, having food, which is really accessible anywhere at any time. All those type of things. So yeah, it gets very important. But once again, when you're sick and you're taken out of action, it's like, oh, why me? Why is this happening to me right now? I don't want a cold. I've got things to do. It's like, just chill, man. Just chill. Things are good. Oh, isn't it, right? Oh, I want to be looked after. I need to be looked after. No, just take responsibility, man. You're sick. Just do what you got to do. Get over it. So for this episode, this is episode 4 of season 2. We're still talking about uncertainty, but we're going to dive into apathy and how to really take probably avoid apathy or get yourself out of apathy, but understanding the link between apathy and uncertainty in our daily lives. So I'm going to hand it over to you there, Christy, because it was your idea to talk about this, and I think it was a really good one based on a personal example or an example that came your way. And you said, look, we should do an episode on this because I think a lot of people really struggle with this, or they hit that time where it's like they're feeling really apathetic and it's like, I just can't get themselves up. So what specifically did you have in mind, or what did you want to talk about here?
Well, I mean, helping people understand apathy, or just talk about other people's experiences, because we might not be able to understand it at times, but just listening to what other people are going through, I find always helps. I definitely, for me, did when I was listening to someone that I know talk about how they're so apathetic and they had no motivation, no drive, and so they didn't even care about uncertainty. There was nothing there for them to even get up and do anything every day, or they were uninspired. And yes, of course, that created a lot of uncertainty in their life, but they didn't even care. And so they were in such a place with no emotions, no feelings, no motivation. And I said, that's an important topic to talk about, because I remember during lockdowns and COVID and things like that, it was a traumatic time for many people. And I remember thinking to myself, I actually did a post on it, like apathetic generation. I was like, come on, what are we doing? We've got to do something. We've got to help. We've got to get out there. And there's a lot of people that just, whether it was their own trauma, they were exhausted. We don't know what people are going through. And there all has to come a place of empathy around that as well, that we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes for people. And that's why when I said this is such an interesting topic, talking about apathy and what people are really going through, and when you completely don't have anything in you to actually get up each day and to do anything. Yes, I don't know what you think about that, but I kind of wanted to talk about that today.
Yeah, John, that's really important. I didn't take into consideration the going through the pandemic the last couple of years and that feeling of apathy coming out of it, because I was definitely thinking on the times when I've been like that, particularly with Amy's accident again. It's, I talk about it a lot, but there's so many lessons which I've drawn from it. But it got to that stage where it's like I wanted to do more in my business. I wanted to even work more, but I just couldn't be asked. I got to the stage where I was like, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. And then as things started to get better, it's like it took me a lot to get that motivation back up to be like, now I wanted to go and do something, because it's like, I can't be asked. What's the point? Why do I want to put that in? But in particular, those last couple of years that we've all been through, yes, 100%, when life stops for everyone, our normal way of thinking, our normal way of being just suddenly stops, and we're forced to go into like a home, like our cages or whatever, for a while, and we're told that we're not allowed to go do these things, even though there's so much we can do. We've got the personal power to be able to get up and go do something. It's as though like a hand has been put on top of us and it's just holding us there, right? Which can lead to those really deep, dark places, and it can stop us doing things, and it can take a lot to get out of it. But once again, it's quite interesting. I think you said it, and I won't get exactly what you said, but it's that feeling like we can't do anything about it. It's that feeling like we don't have the resources. But part of the point is we always have the resources to get out of it. Like we may be struggling with some type of mental illness or something like that, which is a little bit different, but the resources are always going to be there to get yourself out of it, whatever that may be. But it's just figuring out a few things. I think it's figuring out what is actually going on. Why am I feeling like this? What's the purpose of feeling like this? Because it is a purpose. There's always a reason why you're going to be feeling a certain way and why you're not taking action to get yourself out of it. And it's figuring out how to actually get past that or move beyond it, because the purpose or the reason for doing it can be outweighed by a purpose for not doing it. But it's trying to figure out what that is. And I think that's where a lot of people really struggle. It's like they get so dictated by their emotional state that stops them from doing anything else, when it's quite the opposite. We need to do something to stop us feeling a certain way, all right? Or at least do something despite how we're currently feeling. So I think that's probably a really good place to kind of dive a little bit deeper on. What do you think?
Definitely. I think also in terms of saying doing something might be surrendering to the process as well, of waiting. I mean, we spoke about that at the start of the podcast about accepting that I might not be able to do as much as I want to do in this season. I always look at things as seasonal. Nothing has ever lasted forever in my entire life. Everything has gone through seasons. And the person that I was speaking about, they have just overcome that. And so it was a season. In that season, they were forced to rest. There was nothing there, so they just had to die to the process. And in that, now that they've overcome it and finished the season, they're now reflecting on what they got from that season of waiting and surrendering to the process and learning to rest and things like that. So there could be another motive there for, as me as a Christian, I say God forcing us to rest, or our body just telling us we need rest right now. And for people that need to do something like me and like that can be a real struggle sometimes, and you can get to a place where you're depressed or apathetic because you're dying to do something, and then you just completely give up and get apathetic. I don't care anymore. Yeah. I give up now. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, it's so true. Like I always find these times as the time for where the biggest growth is going to be coming. There's a kind of a crude drawing. I'm not going to do it now, but when you're kind of going along through life, this is life normally, and then something will happen which will kind of send you down into a moment of like maybe depression, uncertainty, lack of motivation, apathy, whatever it may be. But this is the time when the most growth typically happens, and you've got a choice. The choice is either be consumed by this and let it take me down even further, or I'm going to learn something which is going to take me to the next level. All right. And you go up to that next level, keep going along, and then naturally it happens again. Something else is going to happen which is going to knock you down. But this is the time where the biggest lessons typically come, and that acceptance of that and being part of it, you know what, this is happening. This is just where I am right now. It doesn't feel nice, but I know something better is coming, is a really good place to kind of help you start to get yourself out of it, because that apathy is really a place of, there's no enthusiasm towards anything. I don't have any motivation to go do anything. I don't find anything enjoyable or important, right? I see that as a warning sign, or even just a sign just to say, hey, maybe you haven't been looking for that thing yet. Maybe there's something here you need to open your eyes to and notice, so you can actually start to live more of a purposeful life.
I just want to encourage people experiencing apathy right now, because I remember in the Amazon jungle, as going off from what you said, Nathan, of some of the greatest gems you get, or the lessons you get, come out of the adversity, and so for me with the apathy, I was forced in the Amazon jungle to have rest from everything. Like I had to let go of everything. I'm in the middle of the jungle. There was no technology. There was no limelight. There was nothing. And I struggled in the first, we were there for 2 months. I really struggled in the first month to surrender and to die to everything. And I did get apathetic. I got really down. I came up eventually, but in the process, I remember that the dying to self was excruciating. And I was grieving in a way, and it was almost painful experience. And so I'm thinking that this is probably what some people are going through. And I just had to die to it, the self, and surrender to the process, and wait and sit in nothingness in the jungle. And that was so hard for me as the type of personality that I am. But after that, the greatest lesson came, which was I found that my identity was in Christ, because I had nothing there, but I had God. And that was the lesson out of those 2 months in the Amazon jungle. But it wasn't an easy process to get that lesson and to understand where my identity was and who I am as a person, because my identity was, I think we've spoken about this in the past, as an Olympian, as a mother, and as a business person and public speaker. Like, what is my identity? And so that's, yeah, so I think that, like you said, sometimes the greatest lessons come out of apathetic situations or depression or rock bottom or processes that are really hard that you're going through or circumstances. And it's seasonal, and something, a gem or a lesson will come after it. So I want to encourage someone that if you are going through low times or apathetic times, that there is possibilities, a high likely possibility that you're going to overcome it, and you're going to get a great lesson from it, an understanding about yourself and about life.
So that's actually quite cool. I'd be interested. When did you go to the Amazon jungle, and what was your purpose for going there?
I thought I was going. This is the funny thing, because if I knew that what I was going to go through, I probably wouldn't have gone.
Well, of course, right? The fear would have come up and said, "Hey, you're going to find yourself." What?
Yeah, well, it's like those things. I think if you knew what was coming, some things you probably wouldn't do because it's so hard. But you just, you're so determined to get through. You get through it. But it was 2018. I went for a Christian medical mission. So a lot of doctors, nurses, and health professionals were there. And for some reason, I thought to myself, "Oh, I think I need to do this," but I didn't know what it truly entailed. And it ended up being whole person ministry. So it's healing on the physical and the spiritual level, and it was just full. It just was like an X-ray through your spirit and your past and everything. And so everything bubbles up for you and comes out, and it's just ugly. It's ugly, and I feel like I was in hospital, and trauma comes up, and issues, and that's why I believe God forced me to rest in that season, was because you have to rest. It feels like you're in a hospital bed when you're going through all that healing and healing. That's it. It feels like in a hospital bed because you're going through so much healing. So you're physically and spiritually exhausted, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually exhausted the whole time. And then trying to go through each day being in that space, and you really have to spend a lot of quiet time with God. So yeah, it was meant to be a Christian medical mission. It ended up being one of the greatest 5 months healing I've ever done in my life.
Wow. Yeah, that's really fascinating. And like that, you're right. That this is the deepest type of work you can do, which naturally takes so much energy out of you because you're facing things which you've been avoiding facing for so long, and you're like your typical thinking, your typical actions, even like in that apathy kind of comes out of it as well. It's like, well, what am I avoiding here? What do I need to face? But most of the time, it's too freaking scary to face that we just don't want to. So we push it down. We just get on with our lives. It'll come up again. We push it down. We get on with our lives. So when we really have that time, that space to actually face it, where we've got no choice but to face it, it usually kicks our ass in a pretty strong way. But that's where we actually get the most growth out of it. We're able to let this go. We're able to let that trauma go and get on with our lives. And this is the point, right? This is why we feel so apathetic at times. This is why we have so much uncertainty, because we're not doing the things that we need to do to get past it. We're feeling uncertain because we're not facing our fears. We're not digging down inside ourselves to like our deep part of our soul to find out why we're feeling uncertain. Why do we feel apathetic right now? And when you put yourself in that position, that's all you can do. The hard part is actually doing it. I know I even struggle sitting down for half an hour to meditate every day. I'm not doing that right now because every time I do it, my mind scatters, or I feel like I need to go clean more of the house, or I need to do some more content, or anything like this. And I think that's when we need to catch ourselves and be like, right, I'm avoiding something here. Why is it so hard for me to sit down for a half an hour to try and meditate and just be in silence? Why is it so hard for me to take a couple of hours out of my week just to go sit in nature and be silent and just enjoy, right? And because this is how we become apathetic. This is how we kind of become uncertain, because we're not willing to do something for ourselves because we're too, for lack of a better word, shit scared of facing whatever it is that we might uncover when we have those moments to ourselves. I think it's incredible that you did something like that, Christy. And it's usually those times where we don't know what's actually going to come that we have the biggest growth, because we don't have any expectations. It just comes and we're like, what the hell was that? Right? I didn't know this was coming. My God, this is crazy, but so good for doing it. Yeah. Yeah. It's the opposite of what everyone tells you to do. Because this is part of what we're doing here. Like self liberation isn't just about like freeing yourself from what's holding you back. It's freeing yourself from all the noise and the distractions out there as well. It's realizing that you're actually the gatekeeper of yourself. Like no one else can do that for you, even though they might want to try. And it's those, like you said, the shouldn'ts, the shouldn'ts. Everyone telling you what you have to be doing with your life or what you need to be doing based on their own model of the world. It's all what the propaganda and media out there, which are telling you that you should be doing with your life, all that stuff. But in reality, it's just that understanding. It's like, you know what? I'm going to need this time. I need time to figure out who I am. And there's a video I want to do. It's going to be pretty harsh about how you have to kill the person you are to become the person you need to be. And when I say need to be, it's not about need to be based on everyone else's goals and outcomes for you. It's about for you being able to live a very purposeful and fulfilling life based on what your soul has brought you here for. Then you need to kill yourself to a point where it's like, I've got to stop all these things in my life. I've got to stop the distraction. I've got to stop all these things which are preventing me from taking those steps forward. All right. And I think this is what becomes really difficult, because once you realize that you're going to have to somewhat become a very different person to who you are right now, that's a very scary thought. I think we've spoken about it before when I've worked with people letting go anger and fears and things like that. For someone who's got chronic anger and they're always frustrated and angry, it's like, well, if I let this go, who am I? I've always been an angry person, or I've always been depressed. I've always had anxiety. If I'm not anxious anymore, who am I? If I'm not depressed anymore, who am I? It's just been such a contributing factor to my life for so long. If I let that go, if that's even possible, this self-talk, if I let that go, who am I? Who am I? I'm always like, Nathan, I'm depressed. I'm Nathan, I'm angry. I'm Nathan, I'm anxious. It's like, if I'm not that, who am I? It really becomes quite ingrained into what we see as our character. So in order to get past that lack of motivation, in order to get clear about what we want, we have to figure out who do we want to be, right? And that moments or those times for stopping, reflecting, forcing yourself to do it is how you become more certain, because it gives you time to think about, well, what do I want? I spend all this time thinking about what I don't want anymore, which does help, but it's like, well, what do I want? What do I really want to do? Despite what anyone else tells me what is good for me or what I should and shouldn't do, what do I actually want? And once you can start to get clear about those things, you can start to have more certainty. Once you've got more certainty about it, then you can start taking steps forward. And if you start taking steps forward, you're not apathetic anymore. You found a motivation. You found that thing inside you to help you start moving forward. And then suddenly it's gone. Suddenly you're more sure of yourself. You're more sure of the future which is coming up. And you're more sure of who you are and who you want to be.
Well said, Nathan. And I think on top of that, the next step would be really praying for courage and boldness. It takes courage to step out of your comfort zone. It takes courage to go to the unknown. I know I did it with the helicopter license. It took a lot of courage. I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. Like, I just jumped into the unknown and scariness of it. So I hadn't been in school in 20 years and all this. And you just got to go for it. Candy Fest Festival right now, it's taken a lot of courage and boldness. And for me, it's not that I don't think I am. I just, as a Christian, I really pray for God to give me the courage and boldness to jump out of the comfort zone and to, get into a space where I'm doing the things that I really want to do. Like, what do I do? And that's what I ask myself as well. What do I really want to do? But it was so out there. It was such a big thing. I said, that's a bit big, just like Helicopter was. This Christian festival, they are big. But you break it down and do it something just small and start off small and it ends up happening. But definitely praying for courage and boldness for yourself. or putting people around you that believe in you, and that when you speak about something that you want to do, they encourage you with your courage and your boldness. And they're not saying to you, oh, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. You really got to get rid of the naysayers and get yourself around courageous people and bold people.
Yeah. I think something that really helps, particularly if you're not used to doing that, is realizing that a bold and courageous step doesn't have to be big, right? Because we hear about that. It's like, yeah, I overcome my fears and now I'm doing this. Look, that's great, but everyone has to start from somewhere. And it's not about comparing yourself to anyone else. It's just comparing yourself to who you are today and who you want to be tomorrow. And that bold and courageous step could simply be, I'm not going to eat this bit of chocolate today if I want to lose weight, right? That's one bold step, Or it's like, you know what? I'm shit scared about making a call to try and maybe sell part of my business or a service or something like that, or even have a difficult conversation with someone. But that's it. It's just that one call. And all you have to do is pick up the phone and dial the number. It doesn't have to be something huge like, I'm just going to put together this massive event and try and get thousands of people to come across. It's like, no, maybe I'll just have one event with one person, or I'm going to start with a conversation with one person. It doesn't have to be huge, but it just means you have to just understand, what is it that I need to do? What am I looking to do? What do I need to create? Is it scary? Yes. Well, okay, that's a good place to start. What's one thing I can do today to make it happen? And then the next steps will come after that. But that's how you start to take those steps forward. Like, it's just, it makes so much sense. It doesn't have to be huge from the get-go.
That's it. And I think, talking about everything today, I think it's quite a positive place to be at if you're apathetic right now. That's what I'm getting from today's talk. It's a positive place to be at if you're apathetic right now.
Yeah. And this is the thing though, right? If anyone who's listening right now is feeling like we've described, like apathetic, I've got no motivation, I'm really feeling uncertain, then you just listening to this is that first bold step, because it's helping you get a little bit of information that's going to help. Now, after that, it's just figuring it out. And this is what I would recommend to anyone is, what do you want? Just take some time and think about what you want. Not why you're feeling the way you're feeling, not why am I not motivated or anything like that. Not how have I created this in my life. It's more about forward thinking. What do you actually want? Right? What do you really want? And start taking some steps, because that clarity will really help you take those next steps. At the very least, it will help you become clear about what those steps are.
That's it. I think that's it, Nathan. I think that's well said. Finished off strong.
Cool. Well, on that note, I think that's a good place to finish up. We had a couple of technical issues again, and my arm's getting tired holding my phone up. But hey, we'll prepare for that for the next one, right?
That's it.
But Christy, this has been a really good talk. I think it's very topical for right now. I think a lot of people really struggle with this, so hopefully it helps. If anyone is listening and it has helped you, if you've got some feedback, please feel free to leave in the comments below. You can reach out to myself and Christy. Our details are in the description below. We've got email addresses and my Facebook group there as well. Christy, any final thoughts?
No, just trust God. As a Christian, trust God in the process.
Yeah, that's a good
And
one.
you?
So trust God in the process. And yeah, I'd say also just trust yourself. Even if you're not a believer in God or religion or anything like that, just remember you always have the tools and resources. And you always have it inside you to take a step. Just never underestimate how powerful you really can be, and just dig down inside yourself. And if something there is scary, but you feel like you need to face it, just do what you need to do to start facing it, and that'll help everything else. So on that, Christy, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to catching up next week.
Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.
See you later, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.